Welcome to the Saturday Warhammer War Room stream with our special guest on that side, Pete Whiz. You know him, you love him. I gotta imagine most people who are going to be tuning in today know who you are.
I mean, if they have stopped by our usual missing video games every Wednesday.
Even beyond that, I mean, you've been around in various communities online.
I mean, I am truly an old man of the internet.
How did you get?
I don't know. Sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was going to ask how and when did you get started in Twitch things and communities?
In Twitch things, Twitch I started. I imagine I started watching Twitch because of esports. Like I discovered before even it was Twitch, it was still the Justin.tv days before they made that transition. And I used it to watch regular sports and then esports. And then around I want to say 2014, 2015, Geek and Sundry started doing their things. Right. That's how I met you. And jumping from all the other communities from there on.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Hold on, let me activate share screen. That one. Yes. Allow.
Russ.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So if you are just joining us or just tuning in at some other time, this is going to be a very casual Saturday Warhammer War Room stream. I'm not going to be doing any heavy duty hobbying during the stream because we do have a hobby night with the home buddies coming up later today. And I already did a little bit of hobbying this morning. I did some primer in and it went terribly, but that's okay. Things are primered, so things can be painted at a later date. Like I was telling Pete before we started, my day has been an absolute example of whatchamacallit, Murphy's Law. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong.
And in the worst possible way?
I mean, thankfully everything's okay, but I prepared things to go out in primer, right? I go out, first of all, the resin that the parts I'm using won't actually stick to the things that I have to stick on, which is super annoying. And then right as I go to primer, the wind picks up. And then what was the next thing? Oh, and then I broke a piece, of course. Broke a piece off of a model. Just naturally. So like everything went wrong. Yeah, but you know what? It's fine. It's all good. Here we are. Minty Squids, thank you so much for raiding. Yeah, hopefully you all out there, good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you happen to be in the world. And yeah. I'm glad to be here. I'm happy to be here. Everything is great.
At the end of the day, wargaming makes everything better.
That's true. It's true. And we're gonna talk about that a little bit because there's some wacky stuff that's going on with wargaming. Yeah, so we're gonna catch up on a little bit of actual news out of Games Workshop, and peppered into that and afterwards, Pete, we're gonna talk about your history, how you got into wargaming, what you've done in the past. But speaking of getting started, if you are interested in getting started in Age of Sigmar, which is the Warhammer fantasy game, Games Workshop provided you a new article with exactly how to do it. I believe this was last week. Yeah, now and thankfully this article is a little bit better than just buy our models. But you know, it's pretty much that. And I just wanted to highlight this because I thought it was really funny.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out because I have been seeing everyone on Twitter, Facebook, or whatever the social media is saying how they love playing Age of Sigmar, and it's like the one big wargaming thing I haven't played yet.
Yeah,
and I even if it's digitally, I am dying to play it.
Yeah, and what is also interesting is that for whatever reason, the community for Age of Sigmar seems to be a little bit nicer, a little bit more welcoming, a little bit more tolerant, you might say, than the 40K community as a whole. Of course, there are great people in both.
Naturally,
but, yeah. So I like how they talk about like start here, so literally start on this page that you already happen to be on. But then there's the website. You can download some of the. You can download the core rules. Age of Sigmar is a bit more streamlined and simplified than 40K is, which makes it a little bit easier to pick up. Not tremendously easier. It does have a lot of nuance with special rules for things, but on the whole, it is slightly more straightforward. So you can download the rules. There's a bunch of video tutorials and videos about the factions and things like that. So you can do all that on ageofsigmar.com. But then I love this little graphic. To play your first game, you will need the core rules, which you can download, a tape measure, which you probably have at home, just any random dice, scrolls, which you can get through various ways. But then, of course, you need models. So go out and buy some models, please.
There's a sales pitch. Eventually, it's got to be in the middle of the article somewhere.
Yeah. But it's a neat little article, and then they do show you some of the starter sets. So you've got the Soul Wars one. And then there's some, the start collecting boxes. So if you want a specific army, these generally make it easy to get into an army because they've got around 3 to 5 units, a mixture of some usually some battle line troops and then some fancier stuff. Just like in 40K though, the start collecting boxes, they're not always actually the best to start an army. Sometimes it's more like things you would want to add to an army that you've already started. So you just got to take a look. Yeah, exactly. Specifically, which is it? Oh, the army that I like, the Caradron Overlords. The start collecting box for that one is actually not the best thing to start an army. Again, it just varies depending on the specific army. But they are all cool. And then all the books you can buy and obviously the hobby equipment that you'll need. But yeah, if you want, you can go to ageofsigmar.com and find out all the information on this kind of stuff.
I want to drop that link in the chat so everyone at home can.
I can do that. I maybe can do that.
Okay, so my question to you, Scott.
Yes.
I am not very familiar with Age of Sigmar and the more fantasy brands of Warhammer. I have played Vermintide a lot. With Iffy back in the day. Pretty much it. So, which faction in Age of Sigmar would you recommend for me?
Oh man, let's see. Okay, so I am not an expert at Age of Sigmar. I never played Warhammer Fantasy, so the previous incarnation of this game, and yeah, I only know a lot about a couple of factions. But yeah, as Black Cavalier says, so Pete, what is your general play style? What do you like to play when it comes to a war game?
Well, to take borrow from the 40K universe, I play with 40K. I'll play for the Tyranids, like getting fast, aggressive play style. Just much like the Tyranids, I like to chop up everything as soon as possible.
Okay, so you want like a horde of things?
Yeah, I generally try to go for like the overwhelming power style.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't go wrong with orcs or uruks as they are now in Age of Sigmar. The goblins are super cute and super fun. Individually, not super tough, but when you've got a whole wave of them, and they have stronger units that you mix in with them. But yeah, I'd say something along those lines would be good for you. Yeah, and like I was saying, the faction that got me into Age of Sigmar are the Caradron Overlords, which are dwarves in power armor that fly around in airships and shoot guns. So.
And this is a fantasy setting, right? So it's kind of like steampunk armor, right? No.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and not only are they armored, but they have a part of their societies that they always are covered up completely from head to toe. They don't show. There's no exposed skin on any of them, so you never have to paint faces or skin tone or eyes or anything else.
That's great. Because let me tell you about my experience painting faces. It's terrible.
Faces are difficult. We can all talk about that and reference that. And yeah, that's partly why with my Space Marines I don't like unhelmeted characters. But it's mainly it's mainly because I just don't like the way the faces look. But they are difficult to do. The extreme version of never nudes.
Black Cavalier also makes a very good point that they're Mandalorians.
Yes.
Never must show their face.
Right.
So,
or at least that particular sect of Mandalorians.
Yeah.
But Age of Sigmar does have, as you can see just from this picture of the start collecting boxes, there are a ton of factions in Age of Sigmar. So whatever kind of thing you're into, if you're into skeletons, if you're into essentially Space Marines in a fantasy setting, like huge, beefy, armored dudes and ladies, they've got Stormcast Eternals, there are all sorts of Chaos Demons, rat people.
The rat people I know from Vermintide.
The rat people, yeah, exactly. Lizard people, like there's really a ton of stuff, and the models all look really nice. Age of Sigmar is cool. Check it out. A lot of undead.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
should say the Ideneth Deepkin also are. If I was to look at starting another faction, it would probably be that. If you're not familiar with the Ideneth Deepkin, they're sea elves, and they have all sorts of cool sea creatures. What are they? Order? Yeah, let me just bring up, because they're really rad. So they ride sharks and seahorses. They've got a giant turtle, a giant war turtle. So yeah, this stuff is really cool. I like that.
God, I see that, and I feel this need to possess it immediately. But then I see the price tag.
Yeah.
I'm like, do I want to pay the import tax on that? And
sure.
The answer is probably yes.
Yep. But yeah, again, just really, really innovative, really interesting models in Age of Sigmar. So check that out. Now, speaking of things that are related to fantasy subjects, the announcement for this was made about a week and a half ago, but we didn't have a War Room stream last week, so we didn't get to talk about it all that much.
Okay.
So Pete, I'm sure you've heard that there is now coming Warhammer 40K Magic the Gathering.
I heard about it. I didn't really look much into it, but honestly, that's like two nerd worlds of mine colliding, and that's just incredible.
Yeah, and I've talked a lot about how over the last, I want to say about 5 years thereabouts, Games Workshop has really extended their licenses into other formats, into letting other companies play with their IPs. So we've got tons of merchandise now for 40K, and Age of Sigmar to a lesser extent, but everything from T-shirts to keychains to like mugs and just stuff. If you want to fill your house with stuff, it used to be that for 40K, there wasn't a lot of stuff out there. You had your models, you had your books, and
everything from Games Workshop only as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're very protective of their IPs, notoriously litigious. If anybody tries to play with Space Marines, they've failed in some of those lawsuits over the years, which has been interesting. But recently, I don't know if it's a change in ownership or people at the higher levels, but they've really gone out and expanded into other areas. For instance, even in games. So we've had Warhammer in the Munchkin game, 40K specifically. We've had Warhammer 40K in Dice Masters from WizKids. I don't think that one succeeded all that well, but that was kind of a weird Like you're taking people who are all about the miniatures and then giving them a game that's just rolling dice with no miniatures. And I don't know if that was necessarily the right fit. We'll see if this is the right fit. Going to a game that's just cards and no miniatures.
It's already a Magic the Gathering is already an extremely popular thing. So there's no way. I mean, imagine like people are gonna buy and sell and resell all these cards for God knows how much.
Yeah, and I've never really played Magic. I learned how to play when it first came out when I was in high school, but it just I mean the art's cool. You know, I've had various cards around during my life just to use as bookmarks and stuff, but I never really got into the game. I need something physical and tangible in my games. Which I know also like WizKids now makes Magic the Gathering miniatures, so that's cool. But I don't think you can really. I guess you could put them like on the card and be like, yeah, this guy's attacking. But yes, it'll be very interesting to see how this 40K Magic the Gathering goes. And they're doing other licenses too. Lord of the Rings is going to be in Magic the Gathering.
Oh, so it's probably not going to be like because Magic the Gathering has like the standard format, which is like the tournament format and legacy and all that. So it's probably not going to be like tournament allowed stuff, but just like for flavor and collector's edition cards. So it's a pretty cool announcement.
Yeah, and it doesn't say it on this one, but they did clarify a little bit further in another post somewhere that I don't know if it's only, but there's going to be the 40K in the Commander version of the game, which I understand.
Commander, the one that has like the. Have you seen the Commander cards for Magic? They're like comically oversized cards of Magic.
Oh, okay.
Used as the actual Commander.
As the Commander. Okay, that makes sense.
There are different special rules, so like. It's basically like each player has their commander, their general, and then fight. Sure.
Now, I imagine that whatever like that first commander do you buy a commander deck? Is that how these things work? I'm so not a Magic person.
You can buy. I think,
or you can make your own.
Yeah, I think for both. I think usually people Wizards recommends you buying a deck because. I think Wizards, in this case, Wizards of the Coast does a very good job of doing introductory sets that you can buy both for regular gameplay and for Commander. There are decks you can buy. They're pre-made, pre-planned. They're easy to learn, easy to play. And then the more experienced people play their own decks.
Sure, make their own. I have to imagine that any and all of the first wave of all this stuff is going to be Ultramarines, just because
naturally.
Because why not, right?
Never not Space Marines.
Yeah. So who would the commander be then? Would it be like Gilliman, the Primarch, as the commander, or would it be like a Calgar? Like how epic a power level is the commander when you play these things?
It's pretty epic.
Okay.
Like the Primarch equivalent in Magic the Gathering is sorry, my brain just blanked out. The Primarch equivalent is roughly like a Planeswalker. It's a person with extremely powerful abilities that can jump between the planes of existence, which are technically all the different Magic sets. So you have places like Zendikar, the Ravnica guilds, all that. So I imagine it's going to be like one of those. So usually those are commanders. There are commanders that aren't.
Become the commanders.
Not to get too much, yes, but I imagine it's going to be the Primarchs or like Gilliman and all of the others.
Interesting. Okay. So I don't see myself jumping into this full force unless, of course, they were to do like an Emperor's Children deck or something. then I might have to check it out. But
you never.
I mean, you never know. And if it's successful, they'll do every single one if they can. Every single.
They'll probably do like one or two decks just so I can play if it's successful, maybe there's even going to be one deck for each legion, even the traitor legions.
I mean, that would be cool. We'll see. So yeah, we'll obviously we'll keep an eye on further news with this release. But yeah, they haven't said like when it's coming out or not too much information just yet. Okay.
In the future.
Yes, in the near-ish future, we'll see. So, Pete, in the last few weeks, Games Workshop has released a bunch of Slaanesh models, new models for Age of Sigmar. So they're not technically usable in 40K, although some of them you could swap out, proxy for other things. But they brought back this character Sigvald, who was a Slaanesh worshipping commander, essentially, from old Warhammer Fantasy. He died. Now he's back again. And he's got a really cool new model. And this is a model that like everybody has been super excited to get, to paint and to convert into other things. There are lots of people out there who are working on converting this into Fulgrim, but they did this really cool article where they gave the model to 6 different painters and said, just go nuts, do your own version. And this is such a good example of how like different people's artistic vision can change a model so much. And so these are, actually one of these is really converted, but we'll just go through this really quick. So,
I recognize the model.
Okay, yeah.
Talking about Sigvald briefly during Warhammer Wednesday.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and again, I don't know that much about the character itself, but this model is just amazing. And typically, he's got golden armor. But yeah, so when they gave it to these people, now obviously this person is a insanely talented painter. I don't know how this person did some of the stuff that's on here. This is an example for all of you who might be newer to painting. What we see going on the sword and the shield is called non-metallic metal, or NMM. And essentially what that is you can get metallic paints. I don't have any handy, but like silvers and golds. So they're actually metallic paints that you paint on. But the problem with those is that they don't have a lot of depth to them, and a lot of variation. It's just like smearing on a coat of like chrome, right? It's just going to be one color the whole way. So to get more detail and more depth, a lot of very experienced painters will do, like I said, what this is, non-metallic metal. So those effects on that sword and shield are not using any metallic paints.
Oh,
and it's essentially magic the way they do it.
It is basically magic.
Yeah, but it's all sorts of you really have to know what you're doing to go into this. But it's using grays and whites and adding those really light colors to get those reflective points. But you can get so much more detail and character in it. Now, I have never even attempted this. It's something on my list of painting techniques I would like to learn. But this is a really good example of like a pro doing it.
I can even imagine the time and the patience that goes into just like the sword alone, let alone the whole figure. It's awe-inspiring.
It's rad. Yeah, it's super rad. And then just the detail on the variation of colors on every single armor panel and segment is, it's breathtaking. It's amazing. And then all this freehand detail on the cape, it's super rad.
I have to wonder how much of the painting for this is do people like the painters like sketch out beforehand, or they do like on the spot?
That's a good question. And I've known painters who've done both ways. I've even known some painters who will like draw out what they're going to do or test it on a model first before they get onto the actual model. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on what kind of artist you are. All right, so we got this one that's I think they started with the best one, but and here's some detailed shots, and like it, and I mean the shield, it looks like it's reflecting an image, like you can see it looks like birds that are on there. It's crazy, all just painted on there. So there's this one that's a little bit more subdued but still cool. The color gradations of the blue on that shield are amazing. But like I said, definitely a different style. Side view there. Going back to the gold.
Same. The gold, but still the the
just all
same
those highlights.
style for the medals.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, like that's not using gold paint. That's using yellows and browns and whites to get those various colors. So crazy. And then, so this is the one that was actually converted to be a different character. So they took the base model, but then gave him a whole different arm, a different head, changed some of the... I mean, this is a massive project. Because when you get to models like this, and we've talked about this before... Hey, Squirrel, welcome. Yes, it's young Pete is here.
Yes. It's my rep persona.
Let me switch. Oh, so when you get to really cool models that have a specific pose, the issue with these is that they're much harder to convert because the parts all go together. That are the words that I'm looking for in one way. You don't have options. So to convert something like this, you have to start chopping off parts before you can repose things and add new things. That's what I've been doing to this model. You can kind of see where some of that's been going on. Yeah, yes, you're not. Those are words. Sometimes the words in my head I can actually get out into speech. So again, not only does this model look really cool, but the amount of work that went in to convert this thing from this is staggering. And if you just look at the armor, like even around the shoulders and the chest, like that's all new. Yeah, at some point, you got to say, is it better just to start from scratch? But
exactly,
it's cool.
I mean, it's what going to be like? I'm gonna guess 50 the base model,
something around there.
I mean, and then how many other models you're buying and cannibalizing to make this model?
Right, because you need all your other parts, or unless you're sculpting them yourself. But again, which a lot of people do, and also that's something that takes a massive amount of time and talent, talent. But some people have those.
I mean, I have the time, I have the patience. I most definitely do not have the talent.
So then there's this one, and this person just like painted a whole face on the shield.
Because why not?
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's cool. And again, all of these, this is all non-metallic metal, so no actually metallic paints went into the creation of these things. It's staggering work on these models. It's oftentimes these articles it's half inspirational. It's like, oh, look at how cool, if I practice I could get to this level, and it's half just super depressing, like I can never do this. Why throw my paintbrushes away? Yeah, I can never get to this level, so just beat it. But and then I think there's one more. Yeah, and so this one did like a more subdued color palette, but it's still just those details are insane.
The shield. It's always the shield with each and every one of these models so far. It's always the shield.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great center point. It's like, here's obviously the main armor on the model, but that shield gives you such a great place to do something really artistic and colorful. Yeah, but Jim Morrison on it, that would work.
I think it's because on the previous one, it kind of the face does kind of look like Jim Morrison.
Yeah, bit. I've definitely seen armies based on. Oh my goodness, man! We should catalog all the the goofy themed armies. I've seen a Kiss themed army. Mainly Emperor's Children stuff. People do these kind of things, but there are definitely armies out there that take inspiration from silly real world things.
I mean, you'd think for Kiss and other rock bands, they use the Noise Marines. Which I love the Noise Marines. It's just attacking with instruments.
I'm definitely a fan as well. Games Workshop just announced this new thing, New Model Monday. So essentially every Monday they're going to show off a new model. Makes sense, right? Typically in the past, the previews would be more like you didn't know exactly when they were going to come. They would show a bunch of stuff that's coming out in 2 weeks. All of that is different now, not only because of COVID and all the insane weather that's been going on around the world, But the release schedules these days are sort of all up in the air, which is it's fine. We all adapt.
It's a good way to adapt instead of like everything in a bunch and then all the intensive production. You can stagger things a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So here we have, and I love how they introduce this vampire rat style icon. It's Crits of the Rat Prince. So this is this model is just wacky and bizarre. It's a vampire, but he's got rat parts, and
I honestly thought that was just like a rat fur coat. But
so not only, so check this out, right? So it's all of this, and look, it's all actual rat tails, giant rat tails coming out of the back of the coat.
That's not creepy at all.
I can't wait to see how people paint this and what they do to accessorize this, because it's going to be gross.
It is. I bet that someone looked at this article already and thought, oh, look at the rat tails. I bet I could do some Call of Cthulhu things with that.
Yeah.
Something like weird.
And what kind of like slimy blood trail it's going to have. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what people do with this model. But yeah, so they've guaranteed though every Monday, at least throughout a week, we'll get to see a new upcoming model. It's Arsenal Roy says that's a real fashion choice.
It is.
yes, it is. So every month, well, almost every month, depending on how actually terrible the world is, there's a free miniature you can get when you go into a Games Workshop / Warhammer store. So not your local independent store, but if you go to a real official store, exactly, you can get a free miniature. It's just one that they chop out of a sprue of a bunch of models, so it'll be a random infantry member essentially. So this month, March, is Lumineth, the pointy elves. So you can get I don't know what these are called, but these are Oralan Wardens. So you can get a cool elf if you go to a Warhammer store. It might not look exactly like this fellow here, but it'll be similar. And if you spend $100, you can get a coin to add to your collection. So if you're into elves,
the models look cool too.
Yeah, the models are great. And all of these Lumineth, these elf models they're all brand new for this line. They just came out in the last few months. So so those are super cool. And then, yes.
No, I'm just thinking like those. Actually, I do have something. I don't know why it's kind of reminding me of the Skyrim elves. I don't know if you've ever seen from Skyrim. Like they have the different elf types as well. Okay. And these just remind me of like the one that like the high elves, so like the fancy tall elves with fair skin and clear heart, blonde hair and all that.
Yes, these elves are definitely the fancy ones. And they've got all their little scale mail bits. Yeah. Now, Necromunda is a game that I haven't talked a lot about. I have never played Necromunda. It takes place within the Warhammer 40K world, but it's essentially gang warfare inside a hive. So a lot of the human populated planets in 40K are hives. So think arcologies from a lot of sci-fi settings, but even bigger. Think like the megacities of Judge Dredd.
It's basically Shadowrun, but for 40K.
Yeah. So you have these giant cities that are enclosed that can be the size of a continent, or even they can literally take up an entire planet. You'll have a few of them that'll be connected, but they're just these massive cities. They have thousands of levels. Obviously, the rich people live on top, the poor people live on the bottom. But yes, they'll have gangs. So Necromunda is, again, it's a game of gang warfare. So each gang is a house, and just like the other games, the difference in aesthetics between the houses is massive, and there are some incredibly cool models in this game. the ladies of House Escher, who are sort of like real world punk things. Like they've all got mohawks and crazy colors and asymmetrical outfits. To there's a faction that they're basically all on steroids, so they're all really big and buff, and they use like industrial like power tools as weapons. There's a faction that are essentially vampires, just all sorts of really, really cool models. What they also do is they have added things that you can put in, like this new thing that they released. And so even in a game that has really cool factions and really interesting looking models, they'll add even more stuff. Like this is the Water Guild, so they're not actually a full house on their own, but you can kind of like play these with other things. And look at these models. They are so cool and so detailed. A lot of people have already said that they're going to convert this big guy into the thing from what's it called? The video game series that takes place underwater. BioShock.
The Big Brother.
Yeah.
Big Brother from BioShock.
Yeah, so they're already like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a BioShock, inspired army. It's like, okay, cool.
Again, going for the dedication that hobbyists have. Because Big Brothers have like a drill arm on their right arm. Big Daddy, sorry.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I just kept thinking little sister, Big Daddy. Yeah. Anyways, they have a drill arm, so I mean, you have to get a drill arm bit piece from who knows where.
But they'll do it. Yeah. How much? I'm trying to think of how much the boxes are for the different houses. They're not. It's relatively slightly more affordable than standard 40K because you get an entire gang essentially in one box. It's almost along the lines of Blood Bowl, where you can buy a team in a box that's it's less than $50, I think. Now, however, through Forge World, Games Workshop offers 1 million additional options you can get for all of these things. You can get alternate heads and weapons and upgrade parts, and again, like these sort of special characters that you can mingle in. And is it $35 for a box of these two?
That's somebody a good price. I mean, sure, you have to add in the cost of paints and all that, but still.
Sure. And yes, there are squats, which we always talk about for 40K. There are squats in Necromunda, which is insane. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that briefly. I have a handful of Necromunda models. Like I said, I've never played the game. It does sound interesting. One day.
Are they painted though?
No, of course not. What is this painted thing you're talking about?
Yeah, as is the rule with wargaming, miniatures that don't come pre-painted will likely not be painted ever.
It's true.
Or
it's true. I mean, look, I have painted some miniatures. Yes. I have painted a tiny, minuscule proportion to what I own, but I have painted some miniatures.
It's natural. There's only so much time in the world and so many figures to paint.
This is true. And again, I always talk about, I and hopefully other people like me, I am super accepting of anybody who gets into this hobby, whether you are a painter, a model builder, somebody who just likes to play the game but doesn't like to do any of those more hobby physical things, or if you just like to talk about the lore. It's all great. In fact, I just saw a post on one of the Facebook groups, the Warhammer Facebook groups I'm in, and somebody took a picture of like 5 new boxes of models that was it a he? I think it was a he that he bought, and the caption was essentially, "I can't wait to paint these. I just have to like get up the courage to build them," or something. So clearly this was one of those people who does not like building models, just likes the painting aspect of it. And that's great. That's cool. Like whatever you're into, find somebody else to build it for you, and then you paint it.
So cool.
It's all good. It's all good. And then somebody dropped this into the Discord, and was it Fadier maybe? So this news came out a couple weeks ago. Somebody announced this on social media, but you're never really sure if this kind of thing is real. But now Games Workshop is actually talking about it. So there's a fan of Warhammer by the name of Shahan Durkarabedian. I'm guessing. Gonna try that. A PhD, a taxonomist at the Harvard University's Museum of Comparative Zoology. Now, as you may or may not know, if you discover a new species, you get to name it. That's right. So when this person discovered this horrific arachnid creature that's just absolutely nightmarish, he named it after Abaddon from Warhammer 40k. So this is the Abaddon Despoliator. It is an arachnid. Blah 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 blah. It's in Western Australia. It has all these like weird things on its back. I don't know. It's gross. But he says, much like Abaddon the Despoiler is covered in spikes and various sharp things, Abaddon Despoliator is covered in spines. Maybe they're a gift from the dark gods. He adds with a laugh. So yeah, and now when this news first came out, nobody's really sure, like, again, if it was real. And I saw a fair amount of people who came out and said, "Oh, that's awesome! You know, you're celebrating your hobby and things that you're into." And I saw a lot of other people come out and say, "This is ridiculous! You're an idiot! This is terrible! Why would you do this?" But again, like there's a long tradition of people naming things after it's like the dumbest things, or just like, or name it after their girlfriend or something. So this is from my perspective, this is fine. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change the life of this arachnid in any way. So yeah,
I mean, everyone does that. I mean, the Romans named a temple after Jupiter in Rome. I think it's the Temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, talk about lack of creativity. Like Jupiter, the greatest and the bestest.
Yeah. So they joke. Where is it? Oh, they'll say maybe somebody will get to name a moth after Mortarion. Only time will tell. So yeah, we'll see if this triggers a new wave of new things being named after Warhammer characters. Okay, let me turn that off. Okay, cool. So Pete, why didn't you tell us, how did you get into war games, miniatures, any of that kind of stuff?
Well, my very first, since we talked a lot about painting, my very first experience with board gaming and miniatures, all that, was way back when I was a wee young lad of, I want to say, 10-ish. I started spending a lot of time at a friend's house, like the whole sleepover thing you do when you're young. That from my friend's stepfather had a whole collection of miniatures, like literally a whole room, kind of like you have a toy room, but only for miniatures.
Okay, wow.
And all of them incredible. I could not name a single one of them because I was too young to retain the information.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, for me, it was the first time experiencing that, looking at all these intricately carved models, all that. Oh, I actually remembered. I actually do have some models which I could sneakily go grab later that I brought. And then, like, he explained, like, one day, like, I actually asked him, like, "Oh, how do you buy these?" And then I noticed that he was painting, like, kind of explained it, and he did not let me paint it, much to my own sadness, because it's kind of understandable letting a 10-year-old, kid you don't really know.
Sure.
I mean, that was like my first experience with like miniatures and all that. And then, like, it kind of fell away until much later. I went with my grandmother to France. Spent like we had like a holiday week, and then like, oh yeah, why don't we go to Paris and all that?
When in France, right?
Yeah, I mean, kind of lived fairly close, so. So I then went to that, and there was this very big in Paris, in the Champs Elysees neighborhood. There's this very big department store, which is like 5-story. It's like Macy's in New York, only
Okay.
French. And the top floor is toys, and that's like a wonderland. And there, I just remembering from like the experience of a year or so before of having seen all those miniatures. I saw a lot of miniatures like, oh, I will buy this, I will buy that one, I will buy this one. A few of them were pre-painted, a few were not. There was like so cool, mostly like fantasy thing, like knights and orcs and all that.
Yeah.
And that was like when I started doing hobbying all the way, and then it's kind of like those rabbit holes, right?
Yes.
You follow that, you start seeking more. I got a few. Then like kind of like around high school, I started discovering like actual wargaming and all that. Which is an interesting because by high school I was living here. For those of you who don't know, I am currently a resident of South America. Brazil will be more specific. And here there's a very interesting relationship of hobbying because most of these things are important here. They're not don't produce, even though we do produce a lot of stuff. Miniatures from like Games Workshop and similar things are all important from China, Taiwan, or wherever they're produced. So there's for a lot of things, but specifically for this category of things, there's a very heavy import tax. So again, people don't want to pay that. I mean, it's already an expensive thing, and then you have to pay like half again the same price. People generally don't invest less. So there's not a lot of hobbying shops. The closest one to where I live is a good 5 kilometers away.
Okay.
So it kind of like, but when you do find one of these few shops, which was my case, I found one of the shops, and initially I started going to that shop for Friday Night Magic for Magic Gathering.
Yep.
And then like I noticed like, oh, people are playing this game with miniatures. I'm gonna see what it is. And then they introduced it to me. It was 40K, which I kind of at the time, because I was a high schooler and without money, I didn't get much into it. I did, however, at the same time, I bought a few models from BattleTech Dark Age. Sorry, Age of Discord. My bad.
Okay.
There are many things with ages.
Yes.
Yes. I bought a pre-built kit, and that was like my first official I own this wargaming thing. I got into that, then naturally then the whole college thing happened, and I acquired, and along the way I acquired a set of Tyranids.
Nice.
Fully at 100%, this one was a Scott's fault because by then I had met Scott. Like, oh, I know this thing. Met Tyranids. I painted them like dinosaurs, which again, I have with painting a very interesting, like whatever is in the mood at the moment. So I painted them like dinosaurs. So one of them looked like T-Rex and all that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I did have to sell most of my miniatures because for reasons that kind of private, but people can imagine why. But this is my single remaining.
Hold on, wait. Let me get to, there you go.
Camera this is my single remaining wargaming miniature. It is a Clan Jade Falcon mech from BattleTech.
Okay, I've heard of such a thing.
Yeah. It's camera will not focus. So sorry. It's an Irie mech. It's the one like I thought I'm gonna sell my stuff, but I'm gonna keep one for myself because it's like the first ever miniature I ever owned. It brings back memories.
That's cool.
And ever since then, I've kind of like I've played with borrowed sets.
Yeah.
When there's time and opportunity, I try to keep up with at least like the Warhammer lore and all that.
Oh, I like Airden's. Airden says, as soon as there's going to be an Age of Ages, yes. but then they'll even subdivide it. Age of Ages, Dark Age, Age of Ages, the next age. Yeah, there's always
Age of Ages, Age of Legends.
Age of Legends. Yes, of course. Okay, so I was going to ask you. Oh, okay. So you're in a location where there's not a lot of access to these kinds of games and these types of miniatures. Is there a growing community there of 3D printing?
Oh yes, the 3D printing. There's definitely a big scene here. I do live in especially where I live, where it's the technological capital of. I mean, one of the, but I think it's the most. One of the technological capitals of the whole of Latin America, and because of that, there's a lot of 3D printing. And I imagine, but at this point, there has to have been people that are 3D printing their armies. Not sure how legal that is, because
we the legality of 3D printing is a whole wild west discussion. And even like when there's all this crazy stuff. Like if you go on Etsy, not to go off into too big of a tangent, but there are a bunch of companies out there that make 3D models, right? That they sell them through Patreons or whatever else. But if you go on Etsy, you can buy a lot of these models that somebody has actually printed out. So like if you don't have a printer, but you want, this cool STL that somebody made, you can buy one that's already printed. And it'll be sometimes from that actual company. Sometimes it'll be from a third party, which in this case, I mean, it's almost like a fourth party we're talking about. If it's something that's based on something real, from like a big company. But a lot of these small outfits that make these STLs will sell licenses to people to print them and sell them like on Etsy and something like that. But then like even then the gray, it's all gray areas. I was going to say the gray areas, but it's all gray area with all this kind of stuff. And
it's a very new area as well, so I don't imagine it's very well regulated anyways.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, I think I mentioned this the other day on one of my streams, but just recently, a lot of the big Warhammer and hobby and YouTube accounts did videos about 3D printing and things like that, and it was really interesting to hear from, again, like these bigger players in the wargaming community and the wargaming scene talking about, okay, well, here's what's out there. They, especially guy over at I always forget the name of each channel, Midwinter Minis. He did a video, and he said very specifically at the beginning, he's like, this is an informational video. I'm going to talk about what's out there. I'm going to talk about how these people feel, and I'm just going to present the information. I'm not going to weigh in on any side. I don't have an opinion. This is just information. And it was really interesting because, again, you have everything from people who just want to pirate everything in the world and just, a new Warhammer model comes out, they just want a 3D version of it that they can make themselves or buy from somebody else, all the way to people who only think 3D printing Warhammer stuff is okay if it's something that's long out of print and there's no other way to get it. That makes sense to me. Still not legal, but it makes some sense to people who just want to make who like literally sculpt their own models and just want to print them out. But yeah, it's a very interesting world we live in, and it's just going to get more interesting as 3D printing becomes even more accessible, easier, quicker for anybody to do. We were just talking about like the things where you can scan something with your phone and then make a 3D version of it.
It just automatically makes the model.
Yeah, which is like we're not quite there yet with that technology, but we're getting there. It'll be soon.
Probably very damn. I mean, probably not with your phone, but I know that there are already very accurate scanners. I make him a little bit of a tangent. There is a person very active in the maker community called Naomi Wu.
Okay. Oh yeah.
If people want to check out her channel is Sexy Cyborg. If you watch her videos, you understand why the moniker. But there are a few videos of her doing exactly that, talking about 3D printing and all that. And there's one of them where she goes to a scanning facility and scans herself, and the level of the detail in the scan is might as well be herself.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And and as you say, those things exist, but not commercially really yet. But yeah, soon, eventually, that will filter down to any of us on our phones. You just mount your phone somewhere, you turn it on, and you just stand in front of it and turn around slowly, and it'll scan the whole thing. Mel Pomeno, I'm sure there's a place where you can scan and print a clone of yourself. But no,
I mean, technically, cloning technology already exists. We can't clone people. It's not legal by any way, shape, or form, but technically you can 3D print a clone of yourself.
Right, because there is medical 3D printing.
Yeah.
You can 3D print organic structures.
3D print, yes. So that is actually a real thing.
Okay, you need the right equipment, and you need to do it in the right extrajudicial country where they won't go after you and bring you back home. Yes,
some
somewhere
stem
you
cells to actually make stimulate the growth.
Yeah, you can do it. How did we get on this topic? what the hell were we
talking about? Miniatures. I mean,
okay. Oh, right. Okay, because because you live in a place where it's difficult to get models. Similarly to, and I've talked about this before, I hear many horror stories of people who live in Australia, where it is very difficult to get these sorts of things, and the import costs are insane. It's wild.
I mean, the interesting comparison between here and Australia, I think both here and Australia, we have a very strict set of laws dealing with importing goods, a lot of heavy taxation and all that. I think the difference, though, is that here it's not as economically developed country, even though it is. I loathe to use the term first world and third world countries. Those are entirely inaccurate. But this is Brazil is a very well-developed country. But in some areas, like purchasing power, spending power, like it's not very good there. So that's that puts a hamper in so many things.
Yeah. So is there? So I always wonder in places like that, and again, I happen to just see a post by somebody in Australia basically saying, I just want to buy somebody's painted army that you can just box up and mail to me, so I don't have to go and buy actual things. So I wonder if there's more of a trade in, in secondary market stuff.
The secondary market's pretty big here. eBay, whether it's eBay or not, I know a lot of the shops because of the whole thing of the difficulty of access, there don't tend to be like very specific shops. I think most of the hobby shops are they'll have like Magic and 40K and all the specific hobby things, because just one thing is not very hard to maintain yourself with. But I know that those shops tend to have their own system of retail of that for secondhand markets. So there's definitely a big secondhand market.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting depending on the economics and the ease of access to some of these things and how that affects the communities and things like that. So when you did get into 40K, obviously you were saying that you played Tyranids. So what attracted you? What attracted you specifically to the Tyranids?
Tyranids. Trying to remember what. I think someone said that it. I was explaining about some other. Yeah, that is it. I was explaining something about my play style and war gaming in general, but also like strategy games as well. Not necessarily war gaming.
Sure.
I tend to have this very aggressive play style, all that, and someone said, "Oh, Tyranids are going to be perfect for you," and then yeah, okay, I'll think about it. And then I went home, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna Google Tyranids, see what's up." And I like reading the lore and all that, and like going like, "Yep, that's it." That's like someone just suggest, and it's not even a person like I'm terribly acquainted with. It's just someone.
Yeah, just hearing that
said it, and then like years later, I'm very thankful to that person.
Yeah. Yeah, there definitely, and again, there was recently somebody did a good YouTube video about this, but there are within most 40K armies, there is flexibility. Like if you like the aesthetic of one army, but you want to play it in kind of a specific way, you can usually do that. Can you play a melee heavy Tau army? Well, maybe not a melee heavy, but there are versions of
there is a way to
right. Yes. Will it be tournament tier? No, it certainly won't. I mean, there are a lot of the armies. They do certain things very well. They do other things okay, and they do things. Some of the things are just not specifically suited for them. But if you wanted to try it out, and especially for fun home games, then sure. But yeah, like Tyranids, you could build a Tyranid army that's all ranged. You certainly could do that. You could build a Tyranid army that has no range, and you could do really well with that.
That's something I fought at least with. Again, I've played a little bit of Space Marines, all that. But other than Space Marines and Tyranids, don't really have played. I've played against, but not have played experience with.
Yeah.
But Tyranids, I think, even though it was like off the cuff suggestion, I think it did really match my playstyle well. So sure, I can be very aggressive, but I can also do like think differently.
Yeah. So do you remember like what units you use and what your favorite units were?
It was I'm trying to think about it. Okay, let me just bring up the units because I'm a very visual person. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I rarely remember the name to anything. People have watched Mist in video games, have seen my difficulty with names and all that.
Well, it doesn't help that, especially with the Tyranids, that a lot of the names are very similar.
Yeah.
And the models look very similar. There's very subtle differences between some of the Tyranid models when you're trying to remember or figure out which thing is which. I mean, a lot of the times. So, for those of you who aren't super into Warhammer, a lot of the kits you buy can be built in different ways to make different units. So you'll get a kit that has essentially a main body and then a couple of different sets of arms or weapons or heads, and depending on which set you use, it's a this or a that. So yes, it can become very difficult to remember which thing is which when you're dealing with those kinds of units.
Got it. I really regret not taking pictures of my army, but my favorite unit, if I remember, again, I know by visuals, I know all of these, but sure. I had a Carnifex, which actually was the inspiration of why I painted everything like a dinosaur. Because I look like, oh, Carnifex, T-Rex.
Where is the standard Carnifex?
I had like the base. Oh, because someone gifted me like the base set at the time. So I'm gonna say this is 2015. So whatever was like the starter set of the Tyranid armor was then. I had one of those. Yeah. And I guess there's a Carnifex in the middle, and then like I got it super fancy, painted it like a dinosaur. Loved it. Mm-hmm. Cried a little bit when I had to sell it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy when you have to. Yeah, there a lot of people end up in this hobby because you build an army, it grows over time. You're adding things to it. You put a lot of work into it, and then when the time comes that you need some money, it's like, oh, that's something I can sell that's worth a fair amount of money because and I know lots of people who have sold
Bringing in
armies
all
over
that,
the years.
like, I mean, imagine the time.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say the paint job was great because
yeah, but even so, yeah.
though I work in a field that relies heavily on manual skills, painting is much like playing stealth games. It escapes me completely. But yeah, that's probably also the time and care of assembling the model, painting it.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I was saying, if you look at these two examples right here, this is the same base model, but look at the differences in the arms that you can put on it and the different heads. Yeah, and the tail. Yeah, there's a ton. And for these, every one of those different options has a different rule or a different mechanic in the game. So you can vary just your Carnifexes, you can have them vary widely in what they do. And you can outfit these guys for ranged. If you use the littler one, the one in the back, it has that big cannon on the side. I don't remember what the name of the cannon is, but anyway.
I because I have a very interesting sense of humor, I was told I would not be allowed to play if I did this, but at some point I did want to make like little speech bubbles for each of my Tyranids.
Ooh, okay.
And put in just like roar.
Wait, who told you wouldn't be able to play that? That's terrible.
But there was a guy that usually ran the sessions and was like said, "Oh, you're not gonna." I think it's not like, "Oh, you can't do this." It was more in the sense of, "Oh, if you're in the future, you're gonna want to." If you like get into tournaments, all that, because at the time I played a lot of tournament Magic.
Okay.
So I'm like, with that mentality, thinking, yeah, probably I'm not gonna do something that silly.
I don't know. That's right, Aaron. Somebody who hates fun is who told you that.
Although, if someone can tell me if it is tournament legal to do that, I will 100% get another set of Tyranids, paint them like dinosaurs, all over again, and put in roar speech bubbles.
I mean, typically the way it works for so looking at the most restrictive thing. So the most restrictive thing would be playing a Warhammer 40K tournament that is hosted by Games Workshop somewhere. So those rules would be every part of every model has to be a Games Workshop part. Now, remember, Games Workshop does encourage customization of your models as long as you're only using Games Workshop parts. So theoretically, and then of course that you're not doing things like modeling for advantage, which is, oh man. Okay, so
modeling for advantage rules.
Yeah, so modeling for advantage, very briefly, means when you're customizing a model or even proxying something else to play as something else, if there's something about it that mechanically in the game can give you an advantage. Typically, this takes the form of something that is not exactly the right size. So if you're playing, what do I have here that would be a good option that I can reach? Okay, so for instance, if you're playing somebody that's like this tall, but you have another, and again, they don't look the same, but then you're like, no, I want to use this as this guy. And it's like, well, he's way smaller, so I'm not going to be able to see him and get line of sight as well as I would to the original model. That's a silly example, but it's basically like that.
It's the same. It's a good example nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'll hear modeling for advantage. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I would say, even if I was at that level, if you used existing parts, probably best if you actually found a Tyranid armor plate that you could use as that. Then I mean, hey, look, it's.
I mean, there are ways. Even if I don't have to add any extra part, I could always paint the speech bubble on the Tyranid, like
That's
alongside
true.
the head itself, and it
right.
goes roar. In fact, you know what I thought? Remember, like really old school comics that had like all the tiny little bubbles for printing, for printing purposes and all that.
Oh yeah.
Like, what's his name? Roy. It's Roy something. I don't ever remember that artist's name. But painting it like a Tyranid like that, like it's a old timey cartoon comic book.
Oh, so yeah, like the stippling, but I think I think that's a different term for the comic book one.
Roy Lichtenstein. Yeah, that person.
Yeah. And the more recent years of art history, I've happened to know that that guy, people don't like that guy so much anymore because apparently a lot of his art was ripped off of actual comic book panels.
Yeah.
No,
Vince
expenses an art major. You can probably tell us all about it.
Cool. Which is very helpful.
Yes. Do you? So Pete, I know, like you said, you painted yours to resemble dinosaurs. Do you remember? Or let me put it this way: how much of the lore did you get into versus like obviously the modeling, the painting, and then just like the fun of playing them? What was your sort of balance in that?
For lore, it's interesting because of the difficulty of access. I really got for like 2 or 3 years. I really got a lot into the lore because I managed to get together a little group that we ran yet again. This is Scott's fault. I was talking to Scott like. God, I was gonna say this is like a year or two ago. I'm trying to remember. I just remember that this was like 40 years ago that we had this chat.
Sure.
Because I was talking like, oh man, I really want to do some role playing in the world, and then Scott helped me with to suggest 3 themes, and then we basically had a group that we were all agents of the Inquisition, and like we did basically we ran a campaign where we had to find out really root out the heretics and all that. They like standard like burn the heretics stuff, and then like delving into like deeper mysteries within the universe. So I really got into the lore for that, and after the campaign ended, I kind of like again, it was coincided with when I had to let go of all my wargaming stuff.
Sure.
So I'll admit my lore is now a little bit spotty. Not that I don't sometimes like do those deep wiki dives of going like clicking a link, open tab, open tab, open tab,
Yep.
I'll do those on occasion. So it's funny because on the Tyranids lore itself, I don't know that much.
Okay.
But into like stuff like I read like if you open the 40k wiki on the Emperor, like I kid you not, I opened every single link into a different tab, even the ones that repeated. I read all of the articles. So like you hear the entire story, like the Emperor from like when the Emperor was born to.
Sure.
Also, again, another tangent. Personal theory.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I have not read the most recent books to see if this is true. But last time I got caught up in the lore, there were like whispers and rumors of the Emperor dying, because I mean sitting in that throne kind of takes a little bit, and we've seen art. I had actually my phone screen for the longest time, and it still is an art piece of the Emperor like looking like a skeleton.
Yeah.
So my personal theory is that in maybe not this year because of the whole I don't know how their lore plans got delayed because of pandemic, but I want to say that like maybe like a year or so, 2, 3, they're gonna kill off the Emperor. That's my they're gonna kill him off.
Okay.
There is going to be a major storm in the community because you're killing off the central figure of authority in the universe.
Yep.
I mean, because sure, it's going to be a drastic thing, but thinking of it from the business sense. Imagine how many new books they're going to print, whether like literature books or rule books. They're going to do a lot, and the value of Emperor merchandise is going to go a lot up. So I think they're going to kill the Emperor and find, like, I don't know. Where's Fabius Bile up to these days? Maybe he can make like maybe he's gonna make like he made a Primarch.
Yes,
so maybe he's gonna make like a fake Emperor so they can sit on the chair. So
that could work.
Because space travel in 40K kind of depends on the Emperor being alive.
Yeah, and so that's the a lot of people talk about that. Yeah, exactly what you were saying. So essentially, the Emperor he's a human, sort of, but he's a god, sort of. But yes, he is a perpetual. I've never liked the idea of perpetuals in Warhammer, just because I'm someone who, when I'm reading a science fiction or a fantasy setting, I like rules. I like to be able to understand what are the rules of these creatures or this technology. And in 40K, for as many rules as there are, the perpetuals, there are not goddamn rules for them. Every single one of them has different abilities, but essentially they're immortal. How are they immortal? Well, they can die, but then they come back to life. Usually. Which again is... And sometimes their immortality runs out, and sometimes they can transfer their power and their life to somebody else, and whatever the writer wants to have happen.
All according to whomever is the writer currently in charge of the canon.
Exactly. So in theory, the Emperor is a perpetual, just like all these other ones. Again, there are a bunch of them who are out there. So yes. So if the Emperor were to actually die, he would then come back to life, in theory, with his full power and glory in his whole body, because what's left of him right now is a decrepit piece of a body. We don't know exactly how much is left of him on the Golden Throne. But but here's the issue, though. Even if the resurrection was nearly instantaneous, which typically it's not. Typically, it takes some time for
it already caused chaos on a
on a scale unimaginable. Everything from
exactly. Even if it was like, man, it takes a whole second for the resurrection to happen, and he resurrects on the exact spot in the exact same position with everything attached. Imagine all these ships that currently are traveling through the warp.
Mm-hmm.
1 second, just what happens if ships is
And then again, there's a gate to the webway underneath the palace at Terra that only the Emperor's will and power is keeping it closed. So that will immediately fall, because there's a giant army of demons that's literally perpetually at that gate trying to get in. There's all this crazy stuff that, like, what would happen? I don't know. Everything would go to shit really, really fast if the Emperor died, even for an instant. But who knows?
But, like Muse says in the chat, they will bend the lore until it fits their business model. So Games Workshop, I almost said Guild Wars for some reason. Totally different thing.
That's a thing.
They would definitely find a way. We also have to think, like, how is, like, he's gonna die? Is he gonna die and resurrect? Because again,
what's the actual?
The whole perpetuals mess is.
Right, or what? But I like to think of, though, and sort of along the lines, Pete, that you were saying, is mixing that with some of the garbage perpetual lore, is have the Emperor die and transfer his power out, say to like a dozen people. So each one of them then gets, like, one of them's responsible for this aspect of it, maybe for that aspect, and then make like a new ruling class of super beings or something, and then you can bring in some more interesting characters. Yeah. Maybe some of them are ladies, God forbid, and whatever.
Finally,
right? What was I just gonna say? Just the other aspect that Pete, you might not be so far off. In this next, is it going to be this year or next year? But in the Horus Heresy novel series, which has been going on, we're on book, technically we're on 60 something, but it is going to end. We are very close to the end. I think there are 4 more main novels and then a bunch of short stories and stuff. But in that last novel, we are going to get, in theory, we're going to get an actual full description of the final battle between Horus and the Emperor. So depending on how they write that, and what we learn about the actual
kind of finagle it in a way,
right? They could tie that into whatever they're going to do with the Emperor in current times, for sure.
Or maybe, well, who knows? Horus didn't die.
Well, hold on now. Let's not get too crazy. But yes, but they've shown, and honestly, Games Workshop has shown a surprising amount of permission they've given to the authors in this series to take facts that we've quote unquote known since this game started in the 80s in the lore and then just change them. So far, really, it's only been Dan Abnett that they've allowed to do that in these new books, which makes sense. He's one of the architects of all of these novels and just an amazing writer. But again, the one I like to talk about, again, this is spoilers, but what are you going to do? Unless you're going to read all the Horus Heresy, you're going to hear about it eventually anyway. But it was known, it was 100% fact for, almost 35 years that the Agents of Chaos were the ones who scattered the Primarch babies across the galaxy. It wasn't. It actually wasn't, as we just found out last year. So
who done it?
It was.
I'll eventually get. I have an Amazon wish list of books.
Sure.
A mile long. I think half of that mile is the Horus Heresy books.
Yeah.
I'll get to it, but sure. Again, I do need to. Again, I need to catch up on the lore so bad.
Yeah.
But who did the spreading them? Because I thought it was Chaos as well.
And again, that was an established fact within the 40K universe forever. But as it turns out, the Emperor had several partners who were helping him to create the Primarchs and the Space Marines. But one of them was a lady, I forget her name offhand, unfortunately. But they just introduced her in 2 novels ago. And she, seeing that the Emperor essentially was going to use these new demigods as his warriors and basically just yes men to all of his crazy schemes, she was the one who did it.
Actual,
and like, okay,
reason to do that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so the lore does change for all of you people. Now, again, nobody watching right now, but for all of those people who get really mad when something new is introduced, or God forbid, people talk about how we could have female Space Marines. Like, no, the lore, but they change the lore all the time. Shut up.
Yeah. Although I must admit, even though I think the whole, in whatever way, shape, or form this happens, that we're very near to a death of some sort for the Emperor.
Yeah.
What I would really like to see after 4 decades close to Warhammer 40K is they finally tell us what happened to the 2 missing legions. I mean, what was so terrible that they did that they just don't exist anymore, and the Primarchs are. Yeah, I would love to find out. I mean, I'm sure everyone in here would also love to find out, but it would be cool,
Yeah, and again, maybe the Emperor as he's dying and being installed on the Golden Throne says, "Oh, my the only 2 things I regret: not making female Space Marines and what happened to those 2 Primarchs." And then it just reveals all the information.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna have to release this information at some point. I think they probably, whomever came out with the idea, how you disappear 2 Primarchs and 2 whole legions of Space Marines is beyond me. mean, it's not something you like make go away, like even for the Primarchs. But I bet that whoever came up with that idea in the Games Workshop writing team did not really think the consequences through. Like, oh, this happened, and we actually have, and they probably don't actually have a reason for that.
Yeah, it would be interesting, to go behind the scenes and be like, okay, we don't need to know what the lore is going to be, but what was the evolution of that behind the scenes? Like, oh, it's a cool note at one point, but then like, oh shit, now we actually have to figure out.
Yeah, it's a cool note, but it's something that's going to have a lot of implications.
Yeah. I like Arsenal Roy's answer. They put the milk cartons back empty. Those bastards. Excuse me. Yeah. So circling around to the Tyranids. Tyranids don't comparatively. Tyranids have relatively little lore to them because they're essentially just voracious space monsters. Yeah. There are only a couple of actual characters that have any sort of independent thought in their armies. Mainly, they have the different hive fleets. So essentially, they spread throughout the galaxy, or multiple galaxies, in fact, and just eat everything they come across. But they have different fleets that go and do different things in different places. Yes, and that's true, Aaron. Fob does an amazing impression of the screeching.
That clip of Fab doing the impression is like it's a gift to the world.
Let's just say if you've heard it, you'll never forget it.
Yeah.
I know it's clipped somewhere. I'm sure if somebody looks hard enough. Yeah.
To death.
I think there's several lore points about the Tyranids though that are really interesting. And again, some that have changed over the years, because if you've been following 40K along for a while, at one point, Tyranids, if they fought a certain type of creature and ate it, they would actually take on characteristics of that. Yeah. So there were Tyranid models that had like orc arms and things because they had eaten orcs. No longer are they that kind of a silly element. But yeah, and Tyranids have an interesting relation with psychic powers, and because they are the shadow in the warp, so there's some of that stuff that's kind of cool. And they how through the Tyranids we get. Now, did you ever look into gene stealer cults at all, Pete?
Yeah, I did a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, they basically there are gene stealers among the Tyranids, and they're sort of like they're a cross between like xenomorphs and brain bug kind of things, because they'll go and actually start to convert
society and all that to prepare. We talked a little bit about this, that I ran this campaign of like a group of inquisitors, all that. But the big finale of all that, there was like this big gene stealer plot.
Ooh, that's cool.
And it revolved around that, and like basically naturally, as with all things Warhammer, the whole thing basically ended with the planet being nuked because of course burn the heretics.
That's how it goes. Yep.
Yeah, but in the end, it just like there was a lot of emotional stuff. There was a scene in the ship and people kissing, but yeah. Speaking of kissing, shipping in Warhammer.
Ooh, yes.
What's your stance on it? Because I know again, my introduction to all this was with BattleTech, and there is a very hardline part of the community in BattleTech that no shipping, no romance kissing.
Really?
Yeah, they're very sweet. It's really weird. Like people are gonna kiss. People are gonna fuck.
Sure, I mean that's life.
Are they all priests, celibate? So there's but recently it's been a little bit more lax. But
Okay.
What about shipping in 40K?
I mean, there's definitely a divide between aspects of the community that are more or less allowing of that sort of thing. But there's definitely a tradition in fan fiction and especially in fan art to do some of that. Traditionally, a lot of it comes in the form of. So my favorite of the Primarchs, Fulgrim, who again falls to chaos, becomes the champion of Slaanesh. So automatically that leaves such a character open to interpretations of sexuality and things like that. But before the Horus Heresy happened, Fulgrim was best friends with another Primarch, Ferrus Manus. They end up fighting at the beginning of the main part of the Civil War, and Fulgrim kills Ferrus Manus. This is a major point in the heresy. Although they retconned it, but then they retconned it back, and was it actually Fulgrim in charge? Yes.
Just from your description alone, I can already imagine the I don't know how many fanfics on AO3 that probably exist. Sure, they fought, but it was those sexy fights where you get really up close and you don't know if they're gonna kiss or not. I mean,
yeah. So there's been a lot of stuff done, like I said, especially in artwork and comic strip kind of things about those two. They were lovers, and then they end up fighting, and obviously a lot of that stuff sort of writes itself. So that's always fun.
It's kind of like Achilles and Patroclus. They were just really good friends.
Yeah, exactly. And then more recently, so again, dealing with the Primarchs, because again, they're essentially gods from Greek mythology, right? They're larger than life, but they're also they're everything humans are, just on a grander scale.
They're a personification of humans, and they're
and they have all the same emotions, just on a bigger palette and crazier. So Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, he's incapacitated also by Fulgrim. Way back long ago, he's cut with a special kind of knife with poison. Anyway, he's locked away. It takes 10,000 years to heal him, partly with science, partly with stuff they get from these Eldar. So Guilliman comes out, and he has a friend among the Eldar, a lady friend, and there's definitely not it's not sexual, it's not romantic in the actual lore, but people have decided among the fans that there is. Yes, so it's Guilliman and his Eldar girlfriend, and again, just tons of artwork of that all over the internet, and it's great. It's super cute.
I think it's a very basic bitch of me, but Guilliman is my favorite Primarch.
Okay.
I know it's it's the most obvious answer. I just like it. I like the story behind Guilliman taking charge of the Empire after the heresy and all that.
And again, I will say that certainly in the last decade or so, with Horus Heresy novels and the current lore, Guilliman has become much more of a three-dimensional character.
Yeah,
he used to be just
has become it's not the one-dimensional Guilliman that from back then.
Like just Codex this and you have to he's definitely more of a character now with flaws, and there have been some cool stories with him. And specifically, actually related to Guilliman, is how we always liken it back to Archer, the cartoon Archer, which is so good, and about how we get ants. Like anytime anyone leaves, that's how we get ants. So how we get bugs in Warhammer 40K. So the whole reason why, because we do find out in the Horus Heresy novels why the Tyranids have come. It's a very brief note at the end of one of the novels. But essentially, in Guilliman's Imperium Secundus, right, this area where he's set up this,
it's his area of space.
Yeah, because he's and especially during the heresy, like there's this warp storm, that the ruin storm that separates the bulk of the Imperium from this area, and there's no communication. So Gilliman is like, well, if we're it, we have to set up our own, continuing system of government. And of course, this plagues him to no end afterwards when he finds out that the Emperor is still out there, because he's essentially, arguably, he's a traitor and he's made his own upstart, mutinous government, which is silly, but whatever. He's that kind of guy. But they find on one of the planets, they find this device called the Pharos, Pharos, and it's just a mysterious ancient piece of alien technology, but it can connect multiple places in the galaxy or beyond the galaxy, for communication, even for actually like teleporting, which is really cool. And they do all sorts of cool stuff with it. But eventually the bad guys learn about it and they're besieged. And the person who's operating the Pharos, he essentially overloads it, and it creates this immensely powerful explosion in essentially like in subspace kind of. And it acts as a beacon. And there's a little note at the end of that novel that, that creatures beyond the galaxy hear it.
The whole psychic hive mind thing hears.
Yeah,
it's kind of it's kind of like if that part of Tyranid lore, like why they came, all that. To me, it always sounds like sure it predates this particular thing, one of these things by years and years, but. It's always reminding me of like someone probably was playing Mass Effect, like there's the whole, not spoilers because it's pretty explained in the literal opening act of the game.
Sure.
But how humanity discovers the Mass Effect relays, allowing them to travel great distance over the stars, meet aliens, and all that.
Yeah.
That it always strikes me as like someone looked at that and thinking, what if we added Borg? But made the Borg dinosaur? It's kind of the...
Just take a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. Like, and then we also get into the whole discussion. Like, sure, they discovered the Pharos device, but who built that device and why is it there?
Yep. Which we will never know. They will never tell us.
Because yet again, much like the Missing Legends, a footnote of that ends up being of great and important consequence is never thought of again.
Yeah. Oh, I should say though, actually talking about the Pharos, that's another really, really good instance of characters in Warhammer 40k that would be good for imagining a relationship behind them. So again, very, very briefly, among the original legions, you have the Imperial Fists, who are just the most loyal, and they're all about building things and making things strong and secure. And then you have the Iron Warriors, who are very similar, but they're a little bit more angry, and they're about tearing things down, but also about building things. They're essentially, they're like perfect rivals for each other. Iron Warriors go bad, Imperial Fists stay good, but not all of the Iron Warriors go bad. There's a character who continues to be loyal. I always forget his first name. Is it Barnabas? His last name is Dantioch. Very interesting character, but he's the one who ends up being in command of the Pharos. He's so loyal. Gilliman lets him do that. And then there's a Imperial Fist character, Pollux, who... Again, like these two people should hate each other. They should be mortal enemies, but because they are both loyalists, they grow to have a really close friendship. Arguably, they love one another. Again, it's not sexual as written.
But there are different kinds of love.
Yeah,
which I think
for
is
sure.
A very important part of the thing to stress. Love does not need to be romantic or sexual.
Yes, yeah, even in the real world too, for sure. So that's another pairing of characters that's interesting, that some people have written about and done artwork about. Yes. What was I going to ask next? So Pete, tell us some of the stuff that you do these days. What are you into now? Where can people find you?
So it's our solo time.
Well, it's part of it. I mean, also
Yeah.
like if you are into any games these days, and
Well, these days, again, part of the whole accessibility to entertainment things, uh, I have been slowly I mean, at least I'm looking into how to get back into hobbying. Uh, I recently purchased well, recently, and then I remembered that this was like for my birthday last year before the pandemic. I
yeah,
purchased a few 2 decks of Magic, so I've been trying to. I've been catching up on Magic,
okay.
resisting the temptation to not buy 50 booster packs and build decks. Yeah, I've been like, because of the pandemic. I don't know. I actually don't think if the pandemic had not happened, I probably would have never gotten into hobbying, or at least not for a long
Hmm.
while. But now that
Yeah.
I have like some extra time to research things and like I'm not going out and all that, I've been slightly. I mean, it's, as usual with anything for me, I've been getting back into the lore. Uh, I have been trying. I tried last December unsuccessfully to get someone to ship me some Tyranids and a set
Oh,
of
okay.
mates. Uh, Box got lost in the mail, which is,
Oh no.
and the person said, "Oh, like you pay for the shipping, yeah, I'll send you," because it was like they had a whole set of unpainted Tyranids that were already pre-built.
Okay.
Honestly, it was like the shipping is in itself relatively inexpensive, but I try that. I'm still trying it. So if anyone has a lead on a set of Tyranids, I would love to talk more because
Yeah.
again, trying to
Get back into it.
yeah, it's hard to get back into it without the actual thing.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, other than that, I mean, I've been slowly climbing back into all my hobbies. You really uh, don't really see it because I on camera I'm trying to figure out which is the
Right.
correct
I know what.
orientation.
It's over there.
I do have, even though it looks like a lot of shells,
Hmm.
most of the shells are actually a lot of like the few mementos of hobbying. Um, I can actually get up to get the box as well. I have
Sure.
a Klingon bird of prey right over here.
Cool.
I have a few Legos as well, like the Ray's speeder bike from Star
Hmm.
Wars.
Sure.
Uh, so
Good
I've been
stuff.
slowly getting back into miniatures and hobbying and all that.
Okay. Cool. And then what else do you do online? So for people to follow you and to see what cool stuff you're up
Oh
to.
yeah, for those of you that are don't know who I am, I'm Pete.
Hi,
I
Pete.
Yeah, hi. Uh, Online, I can usually find me in different corners of the internet trying to. I tend to take much of a not exactly a protagonist role, but more like a supporting role. I try to help different communities foster growth and all that. I worked either with Geek and Sundry, Hyper, and a few others I'm not really allowed to talk about because NDAs. I
Sure.
usually try to do some work like develop in community management and developing the
Hmm.
communities. And then like once they've grown and they can maintain themselves on their own, I'll like move on to the next project. And it's really good work. And I also also have a day job in the middle of all that. So
It's a lot having
yeah,
an online life and and
yeah.
an offline life. Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
I think people mostly know of me from like I will, as usual. I post a lot of random things on Twitter, but I think people mostly know me from doing food because
Mhm.
my day job, I am a chef. I make food. I will okay, and when I do remember to take pictures, I post them on the internet. So I think people mostly know me from that particular
Yeah.
circle of things. Yeah, that's pretty much it. How you can
Have
what I do.
have you ever made any Warhammer inspired food, or thought about it?
Oh, I've in the sense of what do like Tyranids eat, like what they think of them eating. But I think that actually maybe for a future Warhammer stream on Saturdays, me and you could get together. I'll go into my
Okay.
kitchen. Like I have a lot of stuff that can be used for like
Yeah.
ingredients can be used. So maybe we could do like a chat suggested.
Sure.
So like build a Warhammer recipe.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
Cool.
2 hours we could definitely
Come up with something.
yeah. Arrogance also makes a very good point. There's the Hyper used to have this show Trivia Hops, which was a game show, a trivia game show, and I was on the very first episode. I was one of the guests. Wow. It was really interesting. I'm trying to remember who else participated. It was another community member of Hypers at that day. Goober 5. Jesus Christ, brain work no good. Goober's 515.
Okay.
Who was it as well? Oh,
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember.
There's the
Mitch. Sorry, Aaron's basically it was Mitch Gittleman as well. For those that don't know, Mitch works in a lot of these circles.
It's everything.
He's one of the studio heads for HBS, which currently holds the license to make video games for BattleTech. Good partner of Jordan Weissman, which I don't think it would be wrong to say the father of clicks and other
so many things.
Yeah, Shadowrun. I've talked to Jordan. Jordan's a great guy. It was
Jordan's fun.
Yeah, without getting into sidetrack, it was me, Mitch, the community member, Goobers, and HVS's art director at the time. And there was someone else. I have no idea who it was. I'd have to go back and watch the episode. And part of the show was like taking a drink when you missed a question, and because there wasn't much of a script to follow, it was like the pilot, and we were testing things out. And I think everyone got so piss drunk. It was, if you can find this view, if it still exists, I do recommend it because this whole show is so funny. Imagine Zach Eubank, the straight man that he is, trying to manage 6 people that are drunk off their asses.
See, I'm looking at the trivia hops on the Hyper RPG wiki, and the premiere episode there's no video for it. Video not archived.
Yeah, I think
it starts with episode 2.
Yeah, it probably was that first week was a very interesting week. So I don't think. Plus, this was in 2016. So
February. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Wow, look at all these people who were on that show. That's crazy.
So many people, right?
Yeah, I'm just looking through the list. I was like, oh my god, look at all these names. It's awesome.
And then
I know a lot of these people. And then of course, the coolest thing you do every week is on Wednesday.
Yes. Every Wednesday. And this is truly the sellout portion of the stream. Yeah. Much like we do every Wednesdays as well. Every Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Pacific time. I never can do this by head. It's incredible. Well, it's 6 p.m. Eastern, but every
right. Oh yeah, to do the further out. I don't know.
I tried doing for GMT, but applicable to wherever is your applicable time zones. Me and Scott, we do Missing Video Games, a TV show, a web show where we will record a gameplay for a game that is of mythological and historical connotations, and we'll analyze and talk about it. And probably half the show is tangents, but still, we stay on topic. We've done games like Hellblade. We've done Assassin's Creed. It's a lot of fun. It's over on my channel. Love to have you in. I normally, this is when I do podcasts and interviews all that, this is normally where I interview people, ask people to come into our show.
Sure.
We're already the host of the show.
Okay, I'll be there on Wednesday.
Such a terrible.
But yeah, no, Missing Video Games, it's super fun. It's such a great idea of doing these, looking at all, because there's so many video games that have historical content, mythological content, and seeing like how they've done it, and
some more accurate than others. I'm not going to say that, like for example, Age of something.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say that Age of Mythology is terribly accurate, but it's still fun and it's interesting to see.
Yes, it's always interesting, even if not the accuracy, to think of, okay, well, why did they go in this direction that is not accurate? Because there had to have been a choice. Like, why do you take something and go this way?
Yeah. Sometimes it's because it fits the story a little better, or really interesting.
Or in the case of like the movie Troy, when they just do seemingly random decisions and take characters that were perfectly good and then throw them out the window. And honestly, I
still don't know why you agreed to that watch along. I mean, sure, it's not the best idea to watch it for the first time, but everyone needs to watch it, so it's they know it's not a mistake to be repeated again. Don't ever make a movie like Troy. You don't need to. Troy already exists. To watch first, honestly, you gotta applaud your bravery, your courage to watch that movie again.
It's because I love our community so much. I did that sacrifice. I watched it again. I sat through the whole thing, and I typed out all my notes and talked about it afterwards.
Your pain was, I imagine, to everyone's Schadenfreude delight.
Yes, yeah. Anybody out there who doesn't like me, that was a good day for you.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Pete, I'm sure you've heard us talk about this before, but if somehow you are able to accumulate models in this coming year, we always like to talk about. So if anybody's in the chat, you can go to that link to go to Zardoz, our good friend Zardoz's website, and learn about this project that we're doing, the Armies on Display project, in which we, as sort of our own community, and it's a little bit of a shared community. We have some other people who are doing this too. But what we're doing is we are each one of us who's involved, we are building, creating, whatever it is, we're accumulating an army, painting the whole thing, basing the whole thing, and making a display for our army. And again, this is based on something that Games Workshop offers called Armies on Parade. This is different, not the same thing. And
close,
for Armies, it's close, but legally distinct. For Armies on Parade, yes, you will create this display board, bring it into the store. There will be judges who will be very critical of what you've done, looked at all your pieces and things like that, and give points and award, whatever. We are doing a more fun, community-driven version of that project. So we're all going to be doing it together. We're going to help out people from everything from, if you're just starting out, we'll help you pick out what army you might like to play or what models you might like, and helping you build them and paint them and come up with color schemes and you name it, the whole thing. And for people like me, I have a million models. Very few of them are painted. I do not have my own painted army, so I'm very much looking forward to using this project as a way to get an army actually painted, put together. So yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, I would love to contribute. I think maybe, again, pandemic allowing, because and it's like if US is number one, we're like the second worst place for the pandemic. So the pandemic and vaccination allowing, I intend to be out of here by July, maybe at the end of the year. So, and then I am definitely going to I'm going to I'm not going to England where Games Workshop is, but I'm going to go to somewhere very damn close where there are actual hobby shops. So I do intend to come. I will definitely be contributing to this.
Okay, cool.
Army parade. Again, I swear there is something wrong with my brain. I should not. Words should not escape me. I'm a smart person. I swear.
Words are hard. And again, if any of you who are watching, if you have any interest, you can go in. There's a form you can sign up, and that just gets you on just a list so we can keep track of who is involved. And I mean, I'm sure we'll mail out like something. It's not going to be a lot. We're not going to spam anybody. But yeah, no. And Minty Squids, even if you, again, like anybody who's even remotely interested, just sign up, and then because we can talk about ways of getting models that's affordable, because there's lots of ways of doing it rather than like you look at Games Workshop prices and it's like, holy crap, to get an army, how much would it cost? But there are lots of other ways.
It's not a Games Workshop approved thing. It's not gonna be that strict. Plus, in the parade, sure. You have like the big carnival floats. You have here in Rio de Janeiro and all that, but with lots of people. It's big, it's flashy. But hey, even if your contribution is 5 Ultramarines doing a conga line, it's still a contribution. That's true. I mean, you do what you can do, and if the important thing is having fun with it.
Yes. And again, and some people will be doing 40K armies, or Age of Sigmar, but some people will be doing armies for games that are even smaller scale, so it'll be a lot fewer miniatures. We just want to make a fun community thing to get people into, and that's Minty Squids. Yes, there's the company Knight Models out of Spain. Yes, Spain. They do technically it's two different DC miniatures games, and those miniatures are great. I have a handful of them. They're not painted, but I have a handful of them because the models are so cool. I did paint one. Hold on. I painted 3. They were for other people. I gave them away. I painted a Superman for Hector, a Bane for Bert, and a Harley Quinn for Erika Ishii. This was way back when we were doing when we were rapping group hug at Geek and Sundry. Anyway, it was many.
Yeah, it was fairly close because I remember Erica talking about that.
Yeah, but yes, those models are great. They're very, very fun to paint because they're really well detailed. Awesome, Peg Junk. Yeah. Oh man, I got into all of these hobby stuff later. I don't want to say later in life like I'm ancient, but relatively later. So I highly envy those of you who started in high school, who have old stuff to go through, because I don't have any of that. So yeah, cool.
Night Models, if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken, but if I'm not mistaken, it's their headquarters is fairly close to where my family lives.
Oh, interesting.
It's a part of Spain that is really the industrial production area and all that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, they have some really cool stuff. Their models are great. I've played the Batman miniatures game maybe twice. A friend of mine is very into that game and has tons of those models and taught me a couple of times. Like I said, I don't even have the models I have. I can't play as an army or a team because they're all from different factions. It's just like models that I liked. I collected. And yes, one day I will paint them.
One day.
Even for myself. I'm much better at painting models for other people. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I painted a 4th model from that line because I painted the Penguin from the Gotham TV show for my wife. So again, all the models I painted from that line were for other people.
Someone else.
Because that I can do.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
God, we talked a lot today. It's fun.
We have.
Today was such a fun show, Scott. Thank you for playing.
Yeah, thanks for being here, telling stories about your hobby and experiences, stuff that you're into. Yeah, so we are going to wrap it up. Let me see. We should raid somebody.
Remembering to raid is something it's one of the things I should do more.
Yeah.
But I don't, because usually, I mean, sure, we do our weekly show, and I'll stream like without a schedule. Like maybe I'll do some cooking, maybe I'll just play games. I never remember to raid.
Yeah. What's up? And again, I have so many hangups about raiding. Like if I can't dedicate the time that I know I can go into that raid and like interact with people there, then I feel weird about doing it, which I know is silly, but yeah, that's okay.
Oh, I think we almost forgot. I mean, before we raid, I do believe the home buddies are doing some hobbying.
Yes. So if you like this sort of content and you like the home buddies, because I mean, what's not to like? We're all awesome. Come back on this very channel tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific, and we are going to be doing a home buddies hobby night. So each, excuse me, all of us home buddies will be working on our respective hobbies and chatting, talking about our community and all sorts of stuff. There's a rumor that I might be painting. We'll see. The stuff that I primered today did not go well, so we'll see how it.
I guess people have to tune in 3 hours time to find out.
We will see. And if you have hobbies that you're working on at home, we'd love for you to work on your hobbies with us. In our Discord, we have a place where you can show pictures. We'd love to see what everybody's working on. And it'll be a fun hangout. And there's also a rumor that somebody might be staying on after that and doing a special surprise late night stream. So we'll see what happens.
Tune in to find out.
Tune in to find out. Yes, 7 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Norse Meat channel. Let's see. Our good friend Rabid Wombat is on. It says that I don't know how much longer he's going to be on, but let's rate him because we love Rabid Wombat.
Yeah.
I'm going to initiate. Okay, so that's going to start.
Raid.
The raid is going.
Grab your axes and let's go Viking.
Watch, he's probably about to end and raid me.
Yeah.
It's fine. We can raid and then go to somebody else. All right. If you're not able to join us tonight, then have an awesome rest of your weekend. Be healthy. Be safe. I'll be back online on Monday. Pete, when are you streaming next?
Next Thursday. I mean, next Wednesday, technically, for our show. Okay. But then we're going to do Cooking Thursday. I've been trying to do cooking streams.
Awesome.
I did one Friday, but I had to do it. I did it for someone else, and I forgot to share it, which was great. I mean, it was very popular for that other person, but
okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to do every Thursday, if not Thursday, Friday, a cooking stream.
Okay, cool. All right, well, make sure you follow Pete, and we'll be on all the stuff.
Remember to buy Scott's book if you haven't.
Go say hi to Rabid Wombat. Do not give him hugs. Any other form of affection, but not hugs. All right, and I'll see everybody else tonight. Okay, hitting the raid button right now. Go.
Raid successful.
Okay, cool. So end this broadcast.